Welcome to Dear Younger Self show. Today we're going to talk about how you can make self-doubt your superpower. How many times in a day you criticize yourself? How many times in a day you regret this or that? Or how many times in a day you think, oh, I should have done that or I should have done this? Self-doubt really stops you from progressing in life. So today's episode, we're going to try and debunk how we can make self-doubt your superpower. I'm going to tell you 3 real-life stories, 3 stories of failure, 3 stories of incredibly successful people. To me, these stories are extremely powerful. They exemplify self-doubt and failure. They show us that regardless of the self-doubt and failures, you can be extremely successful. In fact, they are part of the process. We should embrace it. We should in fact learn about it and leverage it to become even more successful. The first story is about Steve Jobs. I don't have to explain to you what Steve Jobs has achieved over his lifetime. I don't even have to explain Apple's success to you. But did you know that Steve Jobs made a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures in his lifetime, but he didn't let self-doubt persist and hinder his success? Steve Jobs recruited John Sculley as a CEO of Apple. Steve thought that he needed more experienced operator and marketing manager to run Apple. Guess what? A few years into the job, John reorganized the board and fired Steve Jobs. Imagine getting fired from your own company that you created. That could have been the end of Steve Jobs' career. But he didn't let self-doubt persist. In fact, he used it to become even more successful. Steve Jobs actually talked about this when he was alive. And he said, I didn't realize it at the time, but getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could happen to me, or to Steve Jobs. He made self-doubt his superpower and achieved a lot more success. That was not the only time he made a mistake. He launched multiple products that were failures. Apple Lisa, Macintosh TV, Apple III, and the list goes on. A lot of product failures. He even tried to sell Pixar 4-5 years into the creation of the company for about 50 million. Pixar got sold for almost 5 billion eventually. But again, he didn't let self-doubt persist and made it a superpower. The next story is about Michael Jordan. Again, Michael Jordan does not need any introduction. Because of his great effort, hard work and dedication, his team was able to actually achieve 6 NBA championships. Did you know that he was actually cut out from his basketball team because he wasn't good enough or he wasn't tall enough? What did he do? He didn't give up. He practiced and practiced and practiced until he was good enough. He did not let self-doubt persist. Michael wasn't born with a special talent. He harnessed it. He turned every failure into an opportunity. He knew that growth comes from overcoming failures. Michael Jordan actually sums up his own story in his own words, and he says, I have missed 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the winning shot and I've missed. I have failed and I've failed and I've failed again and again and again. And this is why I succeed. Next story is about Stan Lee, and it's very personal to me because I watch a lot of Marvel movies. Stan Lee is a creator of many Marvel superheroes like X-Men to Fantastic Four to Spider-Man and so on. I'm going to tell you about the story of how he came up with Spider-Man. At the time, Stan had created Fantastic Four and X-Men, and they were huge hits in the comic book world. Stan's publisher actually came to him and said, I think we should create one more superhero. One day, when he was sitting and thinking about creating the superhero, he saw a fly crawling up the wall. And he thought that could be an amazing superpower. A superhero with crawling capabilities. And he started thinking about the names. Flyman, Mosquito Man, Spider-Man. And that's how he came up with the name. And just for fun, he gave this superhero person problems. Again, you've probably seen Spider-Man, so I don't have to explain that. And then he thought, why don't we make this superhero a teenager? And then he pitched it to his publisher. the instant response that he got from his publisher was, "This is the worst idea ever. Nobody likes spiders. People are actually scared of spiders. Teenagers are sidekicks. They can't be main characters. And you want him to have personal problems. Do you even know what a superhero is?" His publisher, Stan's publisher, completely shut him down. So imagine the amount of self-doubt that must have created. But Stan did not let self-doubt persist. He was really passionate about his ideas, especially Spider-Man. At the time, there was a magazine called Amazing Fantasy, and it was a dying magazine. So Stan decided to put Spider-Man into the last issue of that magazine, and he waited with patience. A month later, the publisher comes running to Stan Lee and said, "Guess what? Remember that character that we came up with and we liked is a super hit. The comic book sales have gone off the roof." And suddenly, the whole idea of Spider-Man was the best idea ever. And in fact, his publisher suggested that Stan, create a series of Spider-Man comics dedicated to just Spider-Man. And that's how Spider-Man was created. And that's how Stan Lee avoided self-doubt and created one of the most successful franchises of the Marvel movies, which is the Spider-Man. So, if I can go back in time, dear younger self, the lesson, it seems, is very simple. Even the biggest visionaries have failed, and failed often. Imperfection is part of life. Yet we live in a society and a culture where we are made to believe in the fear of failure. It's okay to fail. It's okay to have self-doubt. If you let self-doubt persist, the consequence is no action, and you constantly pursue perfection. So what do? The solution is simple. Break down the bigger tasks, bigger decisions, bigger things into smaller steps, smaller actions. If your day is going to be tough, just wake up and make the bed, and go make yourself a hot drink, and so on. Taking small step in the right direction is important. House is built brick by brick. So just take the small step, and that could be a big step towards conquering self-doubt.